Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the ChinWag. I'm Richard Vobes. Thanks for joining me on the 28th of July 2022. Bit late today. I've just literally walked through the door, flew through the door, been away on a 24-hour escape with the lovely Julia into the countryside and videoing another of our videos, which will be coming out probably towards the end of next week. And this week's one will be released. If you're a member of the Bald Explorer YouTube channel, then it should be there for you now, and it will be out to the public at some point tomorrow. It's just come out a little bit early, but I've been dashing about the countryside trying to create some more content for you. Hence, wasn't here this morning to record this, and I do apologise. So I haven't overly prepared, not that I prepare terribly much. This is an informal chat, and thank you very much for all the wonderful comments that you have been giving, and I will have a look at those shortly and share some of them with you. The thing I want to talk about today is something I was listening to on the radio as I came back after dropping Julia off, and it was an interview with a lady talking about what grandchildren that she has in a society that she runs are worried about. And I started to think, I wonder if the younger generation are getting themselves worried about things that actually they don't need to worry about, that the mainstream media possibly and other current focuses have been put too much attention on things to get young people of today more worried than they really need to be. This is my contention. You may completely disagree with me, and of course you're very welcome to, and I'll be interested to know your comments. There are certainly things that I think young people will be worrying about, and that is, of course, like the rest of us, the cost of living, what they're going to do in terms of buying property or renting in the future, and what their future is going to look like if we have successive governments who muck us about, if we have certain, shall we say, viruses that turn out to not be as lethal as they were initially promised, other than for small sections of society. The 2 years of the pandemic that we had, in which people were locked up, and then the economy ruined as a result of the panic attack that the governments, not only in this country, but it seems in many countries around the world, have ruined the economy, and so much so that we're in it now. And many of us are going to feel the pinch of that, and it's going to be a terrible time when we're all told the dreadful things that are coming down the line at us in terms of the cost of living, the cost of gas and electricity and things like that. And so, of course, youngsters have every right to be concerned and worried about that. And it's nothing to do with us, the ordinary people of the here and now, who are responsible for this, but for the decisions that government took when they decided that this is how they were going to react to a so-called pandemic. That's just one example. However, I think young people are being battered over the head unnecessarily and given additional things to worry about by many lobby groups of people, I suppose, unvoted for, uncalled for, worriers who want the rest of us to worry about stuff, which I don't think is as fearsome as it may be. One of those, now, people are going to disagree with me here, and again, you're perfectly able to disagree, but let's be friendly about it. We don't need to sling mud and arrows just if we do disagree, and there's nothing wrong with disagreeing, and you may think that I'm foolish for having the views that I have, and you're entitled to do that. I know many people do. But that doesn't mean that I'm not entitled to having those views. And if your view is just because you disagree with me, that my views, because they're different to you, that I am in some way a lesser person, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror, because that is your judging on just somebody having a difference of opinion, which is ridiculous. So one of those things that I think youngsters are worrying completely unnecessarily about, and that is the rubbish that the doom goblin, Greta Thunberg, has been spouting out, and all those on the green lobby, that the end of the world is nigh and that we're going to melt and everything is going to be bleak. I don't think kids today in their perhaps late 10s, 12, 13, early teens and so on need really worry too much that we are going to burn up this planet, that it's all going to disappear and shoot away. I personally don't believe that man-made global warming is such a disaster as everybody is making out. I am still unconvinced by that. Now, I appreciate, as I say, people will disagree with me, and you're quite welcome to disagree with me. I'm not in a position of power or influence in any shape or form. It's only an opinion, and it doesn't matter that I hold this opinion because I'm not the one in government pulling the levers. However, there does seem to be a lot of people who are causing a lot of hardship because they are fully engaged with the idea that we're going to all die in a horrible planet that's catching fire, and that, what was it, 10 days ago we had the hottest day on record, 41 or more degrees centigrade here in this country for one day, and since then, of course, we've not seen anything like it. As I said before, I would be concerned if that 41 degrees was going on weeks and weeks, or it was going on in the middle of December. Then I would agree. I think there's a problem, but I don't see it, and I'm not convinced. But the problem I see more than anything else is that children are being told these lies. I have no problem if somebody wants to believe that global warming is a serious problem, and that the planet will get warm and it may be intolerable and all of that, and that places like the Maldives will disappear underwater. It's not going to go like that. And what always makes me laugh is anywhere that is the sea levels are rising, which it sounds grim, but they rise and they lower all over the place all the time, but not hugely, not in one afternoon. It takes years. Now, if 1 minute the Maldives was here on the Monday and then on the Tuesday completely vanished, yes, I would think, oh, okay, yeah, now I see that's a problem. But let's face it, if you're somebody who stands on the edge of the beach and you see the sea level rising, and it's rising and it's rising, you're not going to stand there and let the water just cover you and then drown and go, see, I told you. You're going to step back a bit, aren't you? I mean, it's the same with people who've built houses on the edges of cliffs. Cliffs collapse quite a lot, especially down along the Sussex coast here. We have a number of chalky cliffs that are always collapsing, and people have looked at that and thought, gosh, I've got about 20 years and then I'm going to have to sell this place, or I'm going to lose my investment, or I've got to shunt this place. And some buildings have actually been moved away from the edge of cliffs. It doesn't happen overnight. And so anybody who says, oh, but the sea levels are rising, and you think, right, okay, so what I'm going to just wake up one morning and find my house completely flooded like that. I think you find that's more of a tsunami than man-made global warming. Anyway, I don't think the kids need to be panicked into worrying about that. Even if it was a thing, man is a very clever, and woman, of course, is a very clever being, and we will find ways to adapt and change, and we will be able to do them in the necessary time. So I think it's very stupid and not pleasant for people to put these extra pressures on youngsters. Other things that I think kids don't necessarily need to overly worry is things like the old LGB, trans, and this, that, and the other that's being thrust down our throats, and we hear about it constantly, about whether it's a good thing to be this or a good thing to be that, or that we live in a racist society. I don't think that we do actually live in a racist society. More than ever, if you inadvertently cast your eye towards somebody who is a different race to you, you're automatically so conscious now of people's races, whereas when I was growing up in the 70s, I wasn't so much conscious. Yes, there were fewer people from different races, that's true, but when you saw them, you just accepted them for who they were. Now, because of the people telling everybody that we're all racist all the time, you're actually more aware of somebody who is of a different race, and you're thinking, crikey, I better not say anything or put my foot in it to upset them, instead of just being able to engage in an ordinary, decent conversation about whether, the price of eggs is going up or not. And, of course, I imagine the price of eggs will be going up. So you want to be able to have that easy conversation with someone without having to think, how do I put this in the right words that's not going to offend anybody? That's another thing about whether you're worried that you're going to offend somebody because you've used words like he or she, or maybe I should have used something, or a person who is able to have babies, instead of using terms like man and woman and things like that. I think we're burdening our children with a whole load of completely unnecessary things to worry about in this modern world, things that we know to be true and that we're now supposed to actually pretend that we don't know, like what a woman is and things like that. We're confusing the hell out of our youngsters, and we're not instilling, in the end, some confidence and common sense. And I think that's what we should most definitely be giving our youngsters. If you're over 30, you should still be able to instill some common sense and a bit of common courtesy and manners to the next generation, and try and ease them into this very complicated world that we seem to have created for them. You may disagree. And let's, on that note, have a look at some of the comments, and thank you for leaving them. I will have a quick slurp of my tea. So I'm going to start here with JWH78, which sounds like one of those American radio stations. JWH78. I've dealt with illness, he says. I assume it's a he because there's a picture of a man in a Stetson there. Most of my life. Now, in my mid-40s, young onset Parkinson's, cluster suicide headaches, and back injury have attacked me at once. Blimey, I do feel sorry for you. I realise now that going to work was something to look forward to, not something to dread. Any day you're able to get out of bed and go anywhere is a blessing, even if it just happens to be to go to the grocer. And it isn't until, you're absolutely right, and thank you for putting that, it isn't until you're feeling unwell, even if it's just pulling a muscle, in the back or something like that, and you go, oh, I can't walk without a twinge. You suddenly don't realise just how important your health is. Now, I often go on about why people eat the wrong things, and don't take enough exercise, or they don't stretch, or they don't look after themselves, or they ingest things that are wrong for them. And of course, it's just an opinion. It is only my opinion, and people will then shout at me or send me emails and tell me how awful I am for even thinking that I could look aside at other people and just be worried about them. But the thing is, we mustn't. I don't believe that we must take our health for granted and assume that we're always going to be in good health. I know from, just as I say, pulling muscles or suddenly having a bout of flu, that how some very simple things can take somebody who is relatively strong and able and flexible into a much poorer state, and how that can be a disadvantage. So I totally agree with JWH78 that, don't take your health for granted, and that even if you can just get out down to the grocery store, that is often a blessing that you just don't know. So I'm totally with you there. Crispin Loves to Dance says, I don't like paying in cash at the supermarket, and when using the public transport, I use a debit card instead because I hate carrying coins. Why? He says, well, they're heavy and I'm always 10 cents short. Yes, well, it's always annoying if you don't have enough money, I grant you. And what's more frustrating is that here in Hong Kong, you can't use cents anywhere else. Oh, right, I didn't realise that. Many restaurants and shops don't accept cents, even though they are legal tender. Yeah, we've been finding that in the UK, that it's sometimes very difficult because the machines, especially the self-service machines, will not let you use cash anymore. And yet, to me, cash is a sign of independence and freedom, and I have no problem with paying on my direct debit card. I don't have a credit card. I've never had a credit card. I don't believe in having things when you haven't got the money. You know, if you've got the ability to save up for it, and then you respect that item. I remember buying my very first washing machine years and years ago when I was first married. My wife and I, we saved up because we used a second-hand twin tub, and it was a very old system. And then eventually we saved up to buy one of these newfangled washing machines that we have a front-loading thing. And oh my God, the bliss! And since then, and owning that and understanding the ease that brought, but it took us a long time to save up the money to buy one, that feeling of owning it ourselves and saving up rather than, oh, it's just a white good and you can buy it on the Never Never. There's something rather special about saving up for something because you respect it all the time you have it. Pete Abraham says, enjoying this very much. Great. I hate to see books disappear. Oh, yes, I would hate to see books disappear. And newspapers and magazines. Some of my favourite magazine publications have disappeared and discontinued. It's terrible when that happens, isn't it? They're like old friends. I love to see video and DV shops return, although now it's all about Netflix. To me, there was something nice about exercising your fingertips, shuffling through the films to find something to watch, particular in those days when we had few channels. Yes, I do remember with the old VHS going out to Blockbusters, I think it was called, and we would treat ourselves perhaps once a week or once a fortnight to whatever the latest blockbuster that had come off the cinema and was on a DVD, and we would rent this, and the kids and us would gather round our cathode ray tube televisions, which were probably only that big, and watch something that we could all enjoy. And whilst I mention it, it's very sad to hear that Bernard Cribbins, I think, died earlier today at 93. And of course, the Railway Children would have been one of those. I gather they've made a subsequent one. I'm not really interested in that. But the original one, charming film, absolutely charming, just like the Titfield Thunderbolt. But anyway, yes, I'm all with you there. Books would be a shame. Shirley Lynch says, when I was young, I used to get into the local cinema with empty jam jars. How did you get into the cinema with empty jam jars? My mother saved them up for me. And at the cinema, you got 2 films to watch. Long sticks of barley sugar for a penny gave us something to nibble on during the films. Such fun. All the kids getting together on the Saturday matinee is now gone. Yes, I remember going to the Saturday movies and watching the old... what was his name? Flash Gordon, the black and white version. Excuse me. Tracy Murphy says, I prefer the personal touch in supermarkets with friendly assistance and not the self-service, which in my opinion is a nightmare. It can be a nightmare, especially when the machines go wrong all the time. And in the end, you just think, why didn't they just have extra people there to sort it all out? Jem Hanks says, enjoy today's ChinWag, Richard. The one I miss is receiving a handwritten letter, trying to guess who it's from by the handwriting or the postmark. Every now and again, and I had one the other day from a lovely lady called Hayley, and I will be emailing her back because she emailed me recently. It's just I've been a bit busy. A beautiful letter in calligraphy. And it was lovely to receive it and open it and read the letter, which was addressed to Julia and myself. So thank you so much for that. Irvin70 says, good evening, Richard. Great show. I would hate to see bank books, petrol, diesel cars go. Just wait. Electric cars in 8 years' time, you'll see adverts saying, have you bought an electric car in the last 8 years? And how you can make a claim. Yes, I do believe that's why fuel is so expensive at the moment, because the government's incentive to keep the fuel costs high. Now, that doesn't surprise me at all. Thanks, Irvin. And Giles Whitehead, artist, says, my dad was a farmer on a small dairy farm all his life. Before he died, when he was at home, I sat with him and recorded a great deal of his memories. I need to listen to those back. His life was also the subject of a chapter of a book called Tales of the Old Country Farmers, and you might find it interesting. Oh, well, I'll have to look that up. Yes, old people, we often just assume that they're just now, useless and they're gibbering wrecks sitting in the chair, but they've lived full lives, and their lives are so different to our lives, and the things they've seen in their life, the changes that they would have witnessed in their lives, is something that we will probably never see, that sea change of things that have happened. And so, yeah, if you can get some of their memories. I'm very fortunate that I managed to get my mother, who recorded a little bit about her childhood, and my father, who spoke a lot about his time at the BBC when he worked there as an engineer, putting on, back then in the 50s, Peter the Wolf, and as a test piece of music, and the Teddy Bear's Picnic. If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise. Apparently, they used to use that music as a test music to test the system and make sure everything worked, all the speakers in all the different studios at the BBC Broadcasting House. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, there we go. That's today's little thing. Are we getting our children to worry about the wrong things? And should we not try to instill into them some common sense, so that in this very confusing world, they are armed with something which is a lot more solid? Let's see your comments on that. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll be back with another one of these tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.